Jimin frozen, Jungkook in tears saying goodbye. What really happened? In just under 30 minutes, the world stopped. No warning, no script, no rehearsal, just raw silence and a trembling voice that shattered millions of hearts. "Thank you for everything," Jungkook whispered through shaky breath, eyes moist with emotion. "This may be the last time we're together like this." And with those 12 words, a global phenomenon was shaken to its core. Behind him stood Jimin, still unmoving, silent. Not a smile, not a nod, just one blink. And that, for many, was enough to signal the end of an era. What happened between the two closest members of BTS? Was this a symbolic farewell, or a literal one? Was this the end of the bond that had been called unbreakable for over a decade? Why did Jungkook cry, and why did Jimin, the emotional, expressive, loyal Jimin, say absolutely nothing? The silence was deafening. The moment unfolded in front of thousands of live spectators and was streamed to millions more. But no one could have anticipated its emotional gravity. This was not just another performance. It wasn't a staged farewell. It was real, unfiltered, unrehearsed, and irreversible. Jungkook's farewell did not sound like a public statement to fans. It felt personal, as if directed to someone specific. And as he turned away after those words, the silence from Jimin was not only louder than applause, it was suffocating. Why didn't Jimin respond? This is the question that now consumes fans, analysts, and even seasoned media professionals who followed BTS for years. In a culture where even the most minor facial expressions are decoded and dissected, Jimin's stillness sparked a tidal wave of speculation. No smile, no hug, no words, just a haunting blank expression as the man he once called his soulmate on stage walked away after what could be his last group performance. Speculation exploded. Within hours, clips of the event flooded social media. A 15-second clip of Jungkook's emotional statement and Jimin's reaction, or lack thereof, was reposted over 20 million times in a single day. In those seconds, fans saw not just a tearful goodbye, but something deeper, a fracture. A visible, emotional fracture that had long been speculated on but never confirmed. Why now? Why publicly? And why did it feel like a personal message wrapped in a farewell? For months, subtle signs had been surfacing. Social media, behavior shifted. Jungkook, who had often posted candid moments with Jimin, quietly began deleting older posts, photos, stories, and moments that once celebrated their friendship. Jimin, too, became more reserved in his interactions, often seen standing apart during group events and rarely mentioning Jungkook in interviews or live sessions. Still, nothing could have prepared fans for this moment. A single sentence from Jungkook, "This may be the last time we're together like this," immediately shattered any illusion of stability. It wasn't vague. It wasn't symbolic. It was direct, personal, final. And Jimin? He blinked once and turned away. One staff member present that night, speaking under anonymity, revealed the atmosphere backstage was unnaturally tense, even before the statement. Jungkook had been unusually quiet, reportedly refusing to rehearse his closing remarks. "We thought he was just tired," the staffer said, but no one expected that. More alarming, several sources from internal production teams confirmed that Jimin left the venue early, bypassing post-show interviews and group photos. His absence was not only noted, it became the epicenter of a rising storm within the fandom. Why did he leave? Was it anger? Disappointment? Shock? Theories multiplied. Among fans, one narrative began to dominate. Jungkook's words were not just to the fans, but to Jimin himself. A personal farewell, a signal that something between them had irreparably changed. That theory gained further credibility when analysis of past broadcasts, concerts, and press events showed clear distancing between the two over recent months. They no longer sat next to each other. They didn't joke as they used to. There were fewer private moments captured, and many fans had already begun noticing. Why were these red flags ignored? Because, to many, BTS wasn't just a group. It was a symbol of unity, brotherhood, and emotional resilience. To accept that two of its closest members might have drifted apart was, for many, unthinkable. But reality is often crueler than fiction. A former employee of Big Hit, no longer under NDA, told Ilgan Sports that the group's internal dynamic had shifted significantly since each member began pursuing individual projects. According to the source, Jungkook has spent more time overseas, in Japan, in the US, on solo work. Jimin, meanwhile, has tried to keep the group pulse alive domestically. There's been a slow, growing silence between them. Not a conflict, but a fading connection. It's this slow silence that now feels deafening. Even more startling, a leaked behind-the-scenes clip shows Jungkook visibly emotional minutes before going on stage. He's seen wiping his face, alone, headphones in, ignoring the chaos around him. When asked by a stylist if he's okay, he doesn't respond. Minutes later, he delivers the sentence that changes everything. What does "this may be the last time we're together like this" really mean? The phrase is clear enough, but its intention? That's the mystery. Was it planned? Was it a warning to fans? Or a confession to a friend-turned-stranger? The ambiguity is what keeps the question alive and painful. Because even if it wasn't an official disbandment, it felt like one. And what about Jimin's silence? In K-pop, silence is rarely accidental. It's often louder than words. According to Professor Han Ji-woo, a communications psychologist from Seoul National University, silence during a significant emotional moment, particularly in Korean culture, can indicate either deep personal disapproval or total emotional overwhelm. In moments where the public expects a reaction, Han stated, a deliberate non-reaction can be an act of personal rebellion. Was Jimin silently rebelling? Was it his way of saying, "I didn't agree with this"? Or had he simply been blindsided? Footage after the moment only deepens the mystery. During the final group photo session, Jimin was absent. Staff members are seen trying to locate him. When found, he reportedly shook his head and refused to return. He left the premises shortly after. According to internal sources, he has not spoken publicly or privately to Jungkook since, if true, this would be the longest communication gap between the two since BTS's debut. The silence between them, once filled with brotherhood and playful bickering, is now filled with speculation and grief. Their once iconic chemistry, the magnetism that powered countless performances, now replaced with distance. The remaining members have remained publicly neutral. RM, Suga, Jin, Taeyong. None have commented. None have even acknowledged the incident. The absence of statements is telling, and the public? Unsettled. Torn ARMY, known for its loyalty, has fractured. Some insist it's a misunderstanding, a byproduct of emotional exhaustion from relentless schedules and global pressure. Others believe this is the culmination of years of suppressed tensions. A breaking point. One thing is clear: the public moment cannot be undone. It happened, and it happened on camera. Media outlets worldwide have taken notice. Rolling Stone Asia described the moment as the most emotionally disturbing on-stage revelation in recent K-pop history. Enemy called it a turning point in BTS's trajectory. Even CNN picked it up as part of a broader segment on the mental health crisis plaguing the South Korean entertainment industry. Indeed, the moment has opened deeper questions about loyalty, pressure, growth, and emotional burnout, about what it means to evolve in the public eye, about the cost of living inside a phenomenon like BTS. For over a decade, the group symbolized unity. But what if that unity was a performance, maintained only by proximity and shared goals? Now that those goals have shifted, solo albums, film projects, military duties, what remains? Jungkook's emotional farewell was not just a goodbye. It was a confession. And Jimin's silence? A reaction more powerful than any word. In a world saturated with noise, Silence is the loudest scream. An O statement has been released by HYB that directly addresses the emotional storm. Their neutral assertion that all members are pursuing individual schedules has done little to ease public concern. The lack of transparency is fueling a fire that refuses to die out. Fans are asking, is this the beginning of the end? Or just a painful chapter in a long, evolving story? Until Jimin speaks, we may never know. Until Jungkook clarifies his meaning, everything remains speculation. But one thing is certain, that night changed the BTS narrative forever. It was not about charts, awards, or viral dances. It was about vulnerability. Raw, terrifying vulnerability that pulled back the curtain for many. This isn't just a story about two idols. It's about the fragility of human connection, especially when tested under a microscope. And as the days pass and the silence continues, one final question grows louder. Did Jungkook say goodbye to BTS, or just to Jimin? Is this the truth behind Jungkook's emotional farewell and Jimin's silence, or merely a manufactured illusion? In an age dominated by digital immediacy, where every glance is recorded, every silence dissected, and every emotional moment analyzed to exhaustion, the question we must ask is no longer what happened, but why do we believe it happened the way it's presented to us? The incident involving BTS members Jungkook and Jimin, which has sparked a global wave of concern, curiosity, and emotional turmoil, is now approaching a critical crossroads. Was this an unfiltered moment of human vulnerability between two individuals long presumed to be inseparable? Or was this, intentionally or not, a meticulously orchestrated performance designed to provoke, distract, or even manipulate? We must ask, how much of what we see is real? Jungkook's tearful statement, "This may be the last time we're together like this," and Jimin's cold, expressionless silence were broadcasted and rebroadcasted across every major social media platform. TikTok flooded with slowed-down edits and lip-reading analyses. Twitter, or now X, produced hundreds of trending threads dissecting every breath, blink, and movement. YouTube thumbnails turned red with captions like "BTS is over" or "Jimin betrayed." Yet, in the avalanche of emotional content, we are confronted with a sobering truth. Most of these interpretations are not facts. They're speculations, manufactured from fragments of footage and echo chambers of emotional reaction. Have we, as consumers of information, been conditioned to confuse emotion with truth? It is imperative to consider that the very platforms which now serve as vessels of information, TikTok, Twitter, YouTube, are also highly performative environments. The algorithms of these networks reward content that evokes strong reactions, particularly fear, sadness, or anger. Is it not plausible, then, that what began as a moment of ambiguity has since evolved into a cultural event distorted by layers of projection, narrative manipulation, and algorithmic amplification? What if this entire situation is being weaponized, not by BTS members themselves, but by a media ecosystem designed to capitalize on emotional virality? It is worth noting that no official, verifiable statement has been issued that either confirms or denies the interpretations surrounding the incident. While HYB has issued generic comments regarding the ongoing individual schedules of the members, no explanation has been offered regarding the true emotional nature of that 30-minute moment. That vacuum of confirmation has been filled by noise, unfiltered and unregulated. At this point, we must pause and ask, are we witnessing the breakdown of a relationship, or are we being shown the semblance of one? Jimin's silence that night, his refusal to speak, to smile, to even acknowledge Jungkook's words, was undeniably powerful. But was it genuine, or was it misunderstood? Did he choose silence as an act of resistance? Or was he simply overcome by emotion, grief, or perhaps confusion? And more importantly, do we have any right to assign motive to actions we have only viewed through the lens of a screen? Consider this. Silence, when recorded and circulated by thousands of viewers from different angles, quickly becomes a blank canvas. It is filled not by intent, but by assumption. Jimin's motionless reaction has become the subject of academic analysis, fan theories, and psychological dissections. But how many of those interpretations are grounded in context, in truth, in verified dialogue? And how many are extrapolations crafted to satisfy our collective craving for drama and narrative closure? Is this event truly a turning point for BTS? Or are we simply being sold a story? The presence of emotional intensity does not automatically equate to factuality. The human mind is prone to perceiving patterns, constructing narratives, and attaching emotional meaning to ambiguous stimuli. This is known in psychology as apophenia. Could it be that the global fanbase, in its desperation to understand what unfolded between Jungkook and Jimin, has engaged in a massive, shared act of narrative construction? If so, who benefits? There is no denying that the incident generated unprecedented traffic. It reignited public discourse about BTS during a time of otherwise fragmented activity among its members. It dominated news cycles. It drove engagement. It monetized content across all platforms. Is it completely outside the realm of possibility that such an emotionally charged moment was allowed, or perhaps even planned, to escalate for the sake of attention economics? We do not suggest this as fact. But we must ask, have we been manipulated into caring about a moment that may not even be what it appears to be? Further complicating matters is the pattern of media behavior surrounding the group. BTS has, for years, maintained a tightly controlled public image. Every word, every gesture, every appearance has historically been meticulously curated. And yet, in this moment, the most emotionally disruptive in recent memory, no damage control, no clarification, no resolution has been offered. Why? Could it be that uncertainty itself has become the strategy? A controlled ambiguity that sustains engagement, divides opinion, and perpetuates endless cycles of reaction and debate? In this regard, the silence of HYB may not be incompetence. It may be strategic, but if that is true, it raises a deeply unsettling question. To what extent are our emotions being commodified? Even the most skeptical reader must acknowledge that we are operating within an environment in which attention is the most valuable currency. And what draws more attention than a friendship on the verge of collapse? A tearful goodbye with no context? A silent witness whose expression invites infinite interpretations? We must return, then, to the responsibility of the viewer. Are you, as a consumer of this content, willing to accept what is being presented at face value? Or are you prepared to challenge the assumptions, question the source, and demand verifiable clarity? In this moment, more than ever, the role of critical thinking becomes indispensable. Ask yourself, is it possible that Jungkook's statement was rehearsed, timed, and carefully placed? Is it plausible that Jimin's silence was a private moment now hijacked by millions of interpretations? What if the entire scenario is a reflection of internal emotional exhaustion, misinterpreted by an audience that refuses to accept the humanity of its idols? Or what if this was exactly what it appeared to be? An unscripted farewell between two men whose bond has finally cracked under the weight of a decade-long journey. Every possibility must remain open until verifiable evidence emerges, in the absence of clarity. We must emphasize, the material referenced in this article originates from a multitude of public sources: TikTok clips, YouTube reactions, Twitter threads, unofficial fan translations, and various media reports. None of these should be considered irrefutable. The fragmentation of digital truth means that no single version of events can be wholly trusted unless independently verified. Therefore, we issue this urgent appeal. Resist the temptation to accept every headline, every fan theory, every emotional video as absolute truth. Question everything, especially when it feels designed to provoke you. The emotional capital of BTS has always been high, perhaps too high. Fans have long held the group as a symbol of brotherhood, perseverance, and love. But even symbols are subject to distortion. In an age where virality often trumps veracity, We are left with no choice but to sharpen our skepticism and deepen our reflection. In conclusion, we must ask again, are we witnessing a moment of painful truth? Or are we entangled in a fiction so sophisticated that it feels real? Have we projected our own fears and hopes onto the actions of two individuals under unimaginable pressure? And most importantly, what do we choose to believe and why? Until answers surface, let us not cling to assumptions. Let us not weaponize speculation. Let us resist turning silence into scandal without context. The truth, whatever it may be, deserves more than impulsive belief. It demands patient inquiry, relentless questioning, and above all, critical thought. Because in this era of digital myth-making, truth is not what is loudest. It is what survives after everything else has been questioned.